4th. My dates they're all going together again.
Right.
December 4th at 12:38. So this is a Camden Conservation Commission meeting, last one for 2024. We do not have our select board liaison present, so we shall skip the town update from her unless she arrives. And we'll jump into Dave at Public Works to see what's happening.
So what have we been doing that is interesting?
More
Well,
partly relevant.
we're trying to work through the permitting right now, the last part of the permitting for the Ross Avenue Bridge, which was supposed to be part of the bridge removal. So they're gonna be putting a pedestrian bridge on Rawson Avenue
So that's going away to be replaced with a pedestrian.
with a pedestrian bridge right there. And we are in the process right now of doing, I think they were doing the environmental assessment for the Mono sewer project that's gonna connect the new Mountainside Park to the system. So we've been working on the engineering for that and the environmental assessment of that. We've been doing a lot of drainage work around town. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen Kendall out there with the.
Well, that's two parts. So we, we cleaned out in the past month, 386 catch basins,
Wow.
which was over,
386.
which was over 100 cubic, over 100, I mean, this is an estimate because it's in piles, but I'd say it was 100, 130, 140 cubic yards of grit that came out of those catch basins. It was just unbelievable, the amount of stuff we cleaned out of those. So that helps. So those are just ours. We didn't do the state roads. And I know the state roads are really bad right now, but at least our system that we own and are responsible for has all been cleaned out, which helps because they are a little pollution control devices. You know, the water goes in and then the solids settle out and then the liquids go across the top. And without that, you just have all the liquids and solids just going to wherever the outfall is, which you don't want.
So we talked about having a couple people go along with them and take
Help out,
recordings.
The
yeah.
last day was yesterday.
Depths. Did anybody do that?
It's all, so now you can go to the app
Oh,
and you can go to the app and you can see all the ones that were cleaned. They're all highlighted and you can click on the inspection app and you can see the actual catch basin and it has a rating, like how full it was, what condition it's in, was there any sheen, was there, there's a bunch of questions they go through when they do the inspection. And then the engineer is also worked with CII and how to sort all that information now. So now we can sort it all by whatever those assessments are. So if the catch basin is falling apart, let's say, there's a problem, we can sort by all the problem ones and then we can work on those.
You guys don't, I don't have your microphone on.
I was just noticing that.
Oh, sorry. And then, so we did that and.
did anybody from this group go along? Because the last meeting, I think it was, or the one before, we
mean,
talked about someone going along and recording all this stuff.
Well, it's all recorded.
Yeah. So
We did do
nobody
it.
from this group.
No one from this group,
Okay.
but I had Kendall go out because I really wanted to make sure that they were done properly. And I went over it with Kendall.
I sent an email out actually yesterday at the last day, but you're not gonna get the emails. Are you dead set on not having email?
Well, I have this flip phone and it'll take one small line. Somebody sent
Text
me,
messages.
text message. See, I don't even know the term.
If some, I
Anyway,
mean,
no, I
sometimes
can't
somebody
get
might
it.
be able to take responsibility for if an email goes out.
Give a
That
call
turn,
or-
yeah, to.
I know, I'm sorry.
No, it's not. I'm sorry, because you probably would have been, it was a last minute thing yesterday, but it didn't occur to me.
Well,
I was also
got
all
my
I could
phone
do to get the
number.
email out, but
I have an answering machine. If I'm not there, I'll get right back to you.
next time if somebody
Okay.
else sees that there's maybe a,
I don't think I'm on it at the moment, but I could call him if I was on.
I think you were actually on the email that I sent, but,
I don't remember getting anything yesterday.
did you get
I
it?
saw it, oh yeah.
It's awful.
Kendall
being-
was right in front of my house when I saw it.
Oh, really?
It was a riot.
Did you go out?
No, I didn't, because I was like tied up doing something,
Yeah.
but I saw her out there.
I went out with her one day for a little bit when I saw her in front of my house. But there'll be plenty more opportunities. One issue, as I know that part of the app is working well, but the rest of the thing where there's been a complete meltdown of functionality of the stormwater app.
Yeah,
is-
we working on that. I think Justin thinks it might have been him learning how to sort all this stuff. I talked a little bit about it with him yesterday, because we were trying to
May
be,
have wiped out the ability for
Yeah,
any
but-
of us to access the.
no, they just go back, like CAI can reestablish everything from the day before, because it's all recorded. But,
It's just like I have no access to all of it anymore.
well, we'll just have to make sure
I mean,
everything's
yeah, Aaron was
fixed.
really, I couldn't believe how quickly Aaron responded to my email, but I haven't.
We're not sure what caused it, so they're working on it. But anyway, we did all of those catch basins, and then we started the signs, the watershed signs. So there should be at least 5 or 6 of those up today.
Oh, yeah, so the signs, that's the Camden part, but after our last meeting, Abby Kidder from must have been, she listened to our meeting from the Watershed Association and contacted me about the signs and said that they had been considering getting signs. So maybe they wouldn't do that if we already were doing it. And I said, oh, that is so perfect, because today we said, really, we'd rather have them in the appropriate locations around the whole watershed, not just in Camden. And if the Watershed Association will do that with us, that's great. So I was like, how about, I told her that I had been assigned to put them in Camden, and then she and I are going to identify the locations for.
The Watershed Association has members from all the towns that would be affected by the water. Or in the
Yes, yes. So having it be, rather than it just being, Camden going to the Lincolnville Road Commissioner or something and say Abby, ABBY, and Kidder, KIDDER.
I'm trying to be.
So,
good.
and I showed her pictures of the signs and she thought they were great. And so that will be good. Now we can take some pictures of them in Camden and go to the other places and say the Watershed Association wants to put these up here, 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 and here. So people are listening to our meetings,
It's good.
Wow.
people that matter. So I was delighted to get that
Oh,
email.
no,
I was like, wow.
that's a good
That's
loop,
great.
right? That's a good,
Yeah.
it's serving its purpose.
yeah.
And it's exactly what we wanted to do. We wanted to get some up and continue the conversations and actually have a clean graphic from one side of the watershed to the other. So that's,
And the panic over this meeting and the idea of having to come here again and say that there were only plans to put these signs up and no actual action, I wouldn't be able to face everybody. So I'm glad to hear today that they're going. Progress is slow, but
we
I was
can-
just
there's plenty of
Saying
those
that
stories.
I watch a lot of committee meetings now, and
oh, good for
Dave
you.
gets a lot of stuff dumped on him.
Who does?
Dave.
No, we're lucky to have him here at these meetings.
He's a go-to guy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, for a little while.
So we'll circle back around. So we've got this, yeah, for the.
Um,
Anyways, moving on.
That didn't sound
Before
good.
anybody
Flip
gets any
over-
ideas.
We'll flip over that part and we'll just,
Keep
what
moving.
else have you got going on?
So then
You're awesome.
we've done a bunch of ditching,
Um,
and just the amount of sand that ends up in the ditches from the winter time, putting sand out, it's crazy. I mean, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of yards of material we removed off of Melvin Heights, Molyneux Road, and now we're working on Matthew John and cleaning those out so that, when you have the road and the road's kind of built like this, and then the ditch is over here, There's that dirt in between the edge of the road and the ditch, and the water can't get to the ditch, so it runs down the edge of the road with these new storms that we have and ruins the road. So you really want to get that so the water sheds off, the edge of the road and then goes right to the ditch. It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And that's,
That's one of the most frustrating things for me doing site visits is explaining that, you have to repair the snowplow. Like grading is important, and it's one thing to have a
Right.
ditch. It's another thing to have the access from the road to the ditch.
the water's got to freely,
It's like,
you
if
don't want water to
if
go
it-
like
you can't go
this. You
up
want it to go like
and over
this.
the little, it's like, it has to go across and down. And
Right. But,
Yeah.
so we've been doing a lot of that. And then we have some work at the treatment plant that we're trying to get squared away with one of the pump stations on Rawson Avenue. There's been a lot of sediment that's built up over there coming from
Lupin Terrace.
Lupin Terrace, yeah.
Oh.
It's just,
Brook.
just all eroding and then washing into we have like an emergency outfall at the pump station. So if we got too much flow and it has to have a place for the sewage to go if it can't go down the pipe anymore. And it goes into the river right there.
Which has actually never happened.
It's never happened, but
That's the one pump
but it
station
couldn't,
that-
it couldn't happen right now. It would come out the building and then go around the building and work its way down into the water now because the emergency outfall pipe, which you hope would never have to use, isn't functional because it's so silted in from all of the silt.
Subdivisions.
Yeah, and that they just created a subdivision and put a bunch of fill in there and then put all the stormwater and shot it to the end of the area they put fill, and it just washed all the fill out a little at a time. And now there's like a ravine like the size of this building or this room. It's crazy. It looks like Grand Canyon over there. I don't know if you've ever
It's not
seen
even an
it.
exaggeration.
No, it's like if you stand in it, it's at least as high as the camera.
Wow.
If not higher, maybe the thing above it.
Since, the last time we went.
And that's in the last
Couple-
5 years.
Yeah,
or
just
so?
not long.
10 years,
10 years?
15 years. Yeah. I mean, it's been,
But it seems like it's taken some
But-
significant leaps.
But here's the crazy thing is that sediment built up on the other side of that outfall pipe. And when the flow is really high, it can't work its way to the river. So it backs up into that pipe and then goes into the pump station. That's the other thing. And then you end up pumping it off as,
the water,
the
It's like
water.
Circulating it?
It's going into the pump station.
river water,
Yeah, the brook water.
brook water.
So you know how it comes it goes under the road on Rawson Avenue,
Mhm.
and then it's all built up with sediment there. Well, it can't flow through, so it gets backed up right there. The velocity of the water gets backed up, and then it wants to work its way back into the pipe.
Mhm. And then there's the beaver dam.
And then that's why I was going to get to that. Then we got this beaver problem over there where they're building. We have a pipe that basically
The force main.
the
from
force main crosses the river there.
Which is the pipe that pumps the sewage from
The Rawson Avenue pump station to the treatment
to the
plant.
treatment plant.
And
Goes-
the beavers
Take over.
the beavers have used it as a
a foundation for their
a
dam.
foundation for the dam, and they built the dam on the pipe.
No kidding.
Oh, and these are the biggest. These beavers are bigger than
Oh,
Beatty. I mean, they're huge. They're the biggest beavers. They're
they're
huge.
all different sizes.
Well, I know, but there's some big ones in there. And they built this house that's it's the biggest beaver
It's a
dam.
mansion.
It is. It's
Lodge.
unbelievable.
I mean, the lodge or the dam? The
The
dam's.
dam and the lodge, both. And so we're gonna have to do something
And
with
they're
that.
clear cutting the riverbank too
Wow.
to accomplish this.
Yeah, this is like major. So I'm gonna call Fish and Wildlife and see if there's some kind of apparatus we can put in there.
We need to
A
work
beaver
on
deceiver.
system So beavers can do part of this work and work with them. I know you can't just suddenly do that, but this
Yeah.
is long run what we ought to be able to do because they can slow the water down in a lot of places and then it'll trickle through. I'm talking,
We need them to build their dams up on the mountains, not down in the valley.
Mountain beavers.
That's where the water flows and that's
Like
what
we
they
need
need.
to, where the water's moving too fast, or like the outer watershed is fine.
we need to redesign the whole thing so beaver flows can exist and they have to be down.
Well, if we took out our dams, then the the dams that the beavers build wouldn't be such a big deal. But what they're doing is building the dams on top of already elevated
Yeah, I know.
impoundments. And
Right.
so
Oh, that makes
so
sense.
you take out that Knowlton Street Dam and then you let these beavers do their 3 or 4 feet wherever, wherever
They're in there, yeah.
makes sense.
We're not there, but
Oh, we actually
That's
really
cool.
are. We're absolutely there.
I saw a show where they were creating this park and they created these beaver houses, little hutches, and they dropped them out of a plane because they couldn't get into this location and they wanted to create like a more of a flowage area and dam some of the water up. And they just dropped a bunch of these beavers in and they just came back like 20 years later and they had terraformed basically this whole park area into like, flowing.
The
like you said.
watershed.
Yeah, like more watershed type
Yeah.
of stuff.
Huh. Well, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
But they dropped them out of a plane and a little parachute. When it landed, the door opened up and then the
Saw that
beavers.
too.
Did you see that?
I did.
Well, that was kind of neat, wasn't it?
It's
That's
pretty
scary
crazy.
for the beavers, I think.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
They didn't know it.
They didn't
Definitely
know it.
not.
really single-minded, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I am having all kinds of problems at Pitcher Pond at the fish ladder. Which is, the Kendall Brook is a tributary of the Duck Trap River, which is essential for salmon right now. And the beavers, because there's this fish ladder, which when the water drops down below the spillway of the dam, the only outlet for the water is the fish ladder. And the baffles that go in this like Danielle style fish ladder are just perfect for the beavers, and they can stop the water flowing to Kendall Brook overnight. And then I go back the next day and I pull it all out again. It's amazing what they can do. That's our fault though. They wouldn't normally, beaver dams aren't total fish passage barriers.
Okay.
Then the other thing is, I think we planted around 40 trees this year, give or take a tree. But I got to iron that out a little bit. And what else?
Yeah,
Oh, you probably could talk a little bit about the Riverwalk part of with the interfluve and no, it's up to you. You know more about that than I do.
Any day now, the fence at the treatment plant will be removed.
Is that right?
Any day. Yeah, right, Dave?
That,
I'm trying.
That is the toughest problem to crack, but we have faith.
I mean, at the end.
You know where the Riverwalk dead
I
ends
do.
now?
I walk down there often,
Mhm.
where it ends.
Right.
Because there's a fence.
Yeah, barbed wire, the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
So they are putting a new fence around the actual dangerous part of the treatment plant, which is, the clarifiers and the different places where you could fall in, rather than having that whole 5 acres barbed wired off, like has been the case since the 70s or whatever, except for the river. The entire river is open because the river, I think, was just supposed to be its own. Nobody would want to go in the river to get.
Something about putting up fence. It's like getting someone to install fence is hard to do. And then we have money that we got as part of a grant. And in order to get them to do it, it has to be made in America. You have to prove that it's made in America.
Oh,
Nobody can do it. So you can't find anybody to put the fence up because nobody can tell you definitively if
Steel.
yeah.
it's that act that is,
Yeah. So
Yep.
They have to
so everybody's
sign their
like,
life away.
don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. Can't get anybody to put up a fence.
Link.
Yeah. Because they can't say it's made, any of the stuff, all the stuff is made in
What
America.
if it's secondhand? That doesn't help.
I've tried. I mean, I knew this was going to be a problem.
I thought you said that.
We found we have one person and it's a number that's crazy. We're going to do it because it's our only option.
As
But
soon as that fence goes up, then we can take the other one down.
right.
Um,
That's where we're at.
so that'll be great.
Not so I
And
have, really.
Well, I have a question for curiosity. It seems like Camden's got a lot of neighborhoods with ditches running through people's backyards.
It's funny you say that.
Trouble with that? Because I have like 3 or 4, and there's like a system to get water, because I'm at the bottom of the hill, around my property, and I have to keep it cleaned out, which I don't mind, but if people don't,
It's,
it
it's,
just takes off.
it's a combination of, like, years ago, they decided to put all of the stormwater system through people's yards, and now nobody
Some of it goes
maintains them.
underground too.
Some of it goes underground, and it always should have stayed in the road. You know what I mean? But because they said, well, we can cut through this area right here and it'll be cheaper or easier, they did it. But what happened is, when they did that, they used all old metal corrugated pipe. It's all rotten. Half of it's caved in. Then it caved in. Then people just like made it a ditch. And then that's what you're left with. And then if you don't maintain it, then the water backs up and they get flooded.
Yeah.
That's kind of what's going
Well, I have
on.
to keep my neighbor's ditch clean, because if there's a culvert there, just like a 10-foot one, I don't know why it was put there, but
Yeah.
if that gets clogged, it just spreads out and runs across the back of my property, and it's all clay, and it's
Oh, yeah.
old dump, every spring I go out and there's trash
Pieces sticking
coming
up. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah, I mean, that's a common issue, and I don't even know what the solution is to it half the time, because we're not really supposed to be on private property. We're,
I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
if people don't keep their section of the ditch clean and it becomes a problem, does the town get called in to do something about it?
that's one of those tricky things where we're mandated not to do public work on private property. We're not supposed to do that. And that's always been my motto. I don't go on private property, because just like I don't plant trees on private property, I don't do work on private property, because it's just a sticky mess and you're not supposed to do it. You're not supposed to take public funds.
But
and
people, the answer is people do call. And
They
that has
do,
to
and
be-
then they're upset about it. And
Right.
they want me to do
Are
something.
some
And,
of them natural streams that were there before?
Yeah.
right. And then they put a culvert in because they wanted to fill it in, and they wanted a flat backyard. There's a lot of that that's happened.
Central Street where it curves around, there was a house.
Oh, hey, Beatty, turn your microphone. Press the button there and then bring it a little closer to you.
Okay. There was a house that had cleaned out the stream that went behind, right in their backyard. And they had a little pond, and they had tree frogs that sang on Central Street at night. It was just heavenly. It was somebody who worked at Plants Unlimited and knew what they were doing. And then it got sold and the thing got filled in. I don't know, but I mean, there's a stream back there, so,
Well, all
Oh, yeah, there's
of
a whole
Pearl
s-
Street was filled in.
yeah.
You know, that's another one. They've done it
Houses
everywhere.
between Pearl and Elm,
Right.
there's a natural stream there. It
Right.
comes from the bog, I guess.
Yeah.
And I used to mow a few people's lawns over there, and they just get like flattened out. There's hardly any ditch there, and it just spreads out.
Right. That's exactly it.
Be respected as streams. We could, just like in London, sometimes they're trying to bring the underground rivers back up.
Oh, yeah, we're working.
We're trying to do that in places.
You were
but
sort of working on that in a way.
There's the worst one in town is actually on Jacobs Avenue in Belmont, between Jacobs Avenue and
I know where that is.
Lime Rock.
Yep.
And it's in between those two, this Belmont or Jacobs and Lime Rock. In the middle of those two blocks, there's a stream that goes through there.
Yeah.
And every one of those people has a water problem.
Yep.
It's because they filled that whole thing in. There used to be a stream running behind in the
Mhm.
middle of those two properties. So it happens all the time. And then there was an old sewer line in there. And then when they discontinued that, people piped everything into the old sewer line so that they could get rid of the water. And then the water ends up coming out on a broken part of the old sewer line in someone else's yard. It's a mess.
Maybe there'll be a fashion and the people will remap all that water,
Well, it is, I mean,
like you were starting.
this isn't
to-
all just theoretical of like, oh, well, we could just talk about it. Those are recognized as streams. And one of the things that we talked about doing was resource protection overlays. So rather than, there are a few of those streams that really should have setback requirements that go beyond the DEP's sort of minimum standards. And that's why we have been trying to map out more of these things, and that's why we'd like the stormwater app to be fully functional, so that every time when DEP comes in and says, yeah, this is a stream. We just had one recently over by Cobb Hill where somebody, it was mapped out more as a ditch. And then somebody was going to go to build something, and we had DEP come and look at it because it seemed to meet all the criteria of a stream. And they said, yes, that's a stream. But then making sure that that gets somewhere so that it's, living information. One of the things with the coastal resilience grant that we have for the river is mapping out all of the stream that comes down behind Lupin Terrace, down underneath Rossin Avenue that Dave was talking about earlier. There are like 3 different forks of that stream, and only 2 of them had ever been like mapped out, showing up on USGS maps, and actually the predominant flow was showing up on no maps. And so one of those interfluve has gone, and it's overflowing Rossin Avenue too. And that's not even in the flood zone or anything. So I think, but the Conservation Commission really could pick up on saying, we want to have buffers around, this, and this stream here, and get the planning board to take that on.
And then the property people come at you.
Oh, yeah, they get mad because
Well,
they want to fill it in.
So it's
I
a
don't think we
whole
should assume that.
understanding that needs to happen. I keep wanting movies to be made,
It's-
of where the water goes and how it behaves, both the sea kind and the land kind, so that people get it in their heads and eventually accept what's going to happen anyway.
I think that some of the resistance is imagined, and it's much less than there are many people in town that are already having water problems, first of all. So like that stream I was just talking about that goes around the Cobb Hill subdivision and all of that, you talk to most of those people there, they have no plans for major development. They have their house there. They kind of like things the way they are. They are concerned about like somebody else doing something major. And so I think in a lot of these neighborhoods, there would be general support for that kind of thing.
There are neighborhood parties about it.
We got a lot of input in the first rounds of the National Coastal Resilience Grant, a lot of input from the people that live around Rossin Avenue, Ames Terrace, Thomas Street, Lupin Terrace, that their stream was, they call it the Little Mississippi. And there was, and then people have come to our meetings about concern with the erosion, and other people have told us about brook trout in the stream. And there's definitely a vocal group of people concerned about.
The idea, if, like, I can picture between Elm and Pearl, and probably those property lines butt right against each other.
Right where the
If
stream
you could
is.
get up people to give up 20 feet on either side and make it a green area, I call it, and then the town would have access to it if there were problems.
There's a woman that contacted me that is on Pearl Street. She has a stream that runs through the back of her property. She believes that the stream used to be in a slightly different place on her property, most likely, and is interested in some kind of restoration opportunity, because she thinks that they would have fewer water problems if they could figure out sort of where the stream naturally wanted to go and give it space. And so then that stream comes down where we have big problems with it is, and this would be something the Conservation Commission could weigh in on too. So it goes underneath Free Street. And then you can see at the parking lot, that's the,
It's behind Samantha's house.
you keep your, but I don't think she lives there anymore, but
Oh,
It's right behind your old place.
Yeah, I just put that in the chat. No, I'm still on Free Street.
Oh, you are?
And I'm right now.
oh,
yeah.
oh, then
Yeah.
you're a stakeholder.
I know it.
I've been afraid of those no trespassing signs lately. But
Wait, what?
on the parking lot side, there's like, it feels like there are new no trespassing signs like that.
Oh, there are, well, yes, we've had people come into our driveway. This is, so my downstairs neighbors put those up, and it's because people cut through our property and they also just come into the driveway. They've come into the patio, and we have children here, and it's
Okay.
uncomfortable.
Okay, I won't be so afraid of like tiptoeing through the stream then.
No, yeah, no, that's.
Oh, I'm glad
it's
to know
safe-
that you're
it's
still
a
there.
safety-
So
Yeah, and like there was like a weird confrontation on our property from somebody who used our private trash cans for throwing away dog poop.
Oh, that's annoying.
Yeah, it was. And
Um,
gross.
So there though, because that's part of the National Coastal Resilience Grant is to look at that little tributary too. And actually just walked back there the other day with Mike Burke, showing him where the flooding happens, because it goes underground again. And it floods all the time. And then it goes, when it does, it sort of sheet flows towards Eric's Barber Shop and floods the sidewalk there. And it causes problems for the Camden Parking Company has, it goes underground throughout that parking lot. But one of the things would be looking to daylight that at least through the portion of the parking lot that like there's one area where it's already kind of up against the back of the property line, right where it goes underground. Daylighting that along there would be a real possibility. And there are two people that are just neighbors sort of in that area, other than Samantha, that have written me unsolicited and said, hey, has the town ever thought about did you know that there's actually a stream here? And
It must have looked really cool before anybody ever did anything here. There must have been a lot of wetlands in that area
Yeah,
because,
it's probably beautiful.
yeah.
up higher, yeah, but then down through there, it's like a little waterfall.
There's I don't know if they're indigenous carvings on the rock or something, but there's a rock right there where it comes out by the parking lot under it goes under Free Street through Samantha's yard, and right where it comes out, there's like a flat rock with engravings or carvings on it or something.
That one says Alden. Yeah, Alden was one of the early owners of some of the mills, so probably like an 1800s thing. But then there's also like shells and like things left over from, it looks like it's either some kind of a midden or it could also just be like marine sediment from, when the ocean was over everything. It's a really cool, just completely abandoned, like uncared for little spot. We should take a little walk around there because the Conservation Commission could write up something. They could say this would be a recommendation. It's private property, but that property owner has been very receptive.
Another thing that adds to that whole thing is when I did Pearl Street, I found this fossil rock, like you've never seen, and it was like this big, and it's just got fossils over the whole thing, like all the way through it and all the way around the outside. It's the coolest looking fossil rock.
Marine fossils?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, wow.
yeah, like a
'Cause
really.
there's not that much around here, so you wonder,
I found two of them.
yeah.
I found a really cool one in the Knox Mill impoundment when they lowered that pond.
Because
Yeah,
the
well-
metamorphic activity here just squished it all. So a lot of it, what would be fossils, was sort of destroyed. So
Well, I don't know where this
it's pretty
came from.
interesting where that,
Yeah, these go back to the glaciers though, when the
Pretty good.
land mass was
Well, they
sunken
move
down and the
stuff
ocean
around.
was higher. I
Mm,
mean, they go all the way up to Moxie.
right.
The whole mantle of Maine, coast of Maine was sunken down into the ocean, like 200 feet. So,
So in terms of like the stormwater mapping or the, where the NOAA grant is at in terms of like re-identifying some streams or which ones, I mean, like where would the best use of energy be, or do we need to sort of wait till this app hiccups are?
No, the app is more of a long, I think there are things that, there's the ordinance kind of stuff. We're just saying that identifying places, again, they're already known streams that don't have very much protection that we could identify. We could also say there's all the spring brick stuff going on. And if you don't, had several property owners contact me concerned about further expansion of the condos up there, and property owners who would be supportive of zoning changes that actually would even take away some of their own rights. But because they have long-term plans for conservation. So there's that kind of stuff.
Curtis Island.
Oh, hold on. That's a totally different.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about conservation.
No, but in terms of what would be actionable stuff that they could do now related to the river or the streams. One thing Curtis Island doesn't have is streams, but then there's in terms of the NOAA grant, writing up little recommendations about daylighting streams wherever possible. It all makes it, there's not that much input that gets received is the thing. So when, the Conservation Commission writes letters about things, just pointing things out, it doesn't have to even be fully vetted or fully designed, just to say.
I mean, look at the
Things are important.
impact the piers that you guys had on the pier stuff. That was huge. What you guys did with that really made a big difference. And it was, I mean, not a lot of people, but what you did made a huge turnaround with how that all played out, I think.
Right. Like all the things when you say, oh, I wish people would think about this or that, just writing that down and sending that to the planning office and if it's within the McGonagall watershed, to the McGonagall River Citizens Advisory Committee or to the select board, you're saying, I think there needs to be more focus on restoration protection of small streams. It makes a difference.
Well, if you picked an area, like the village area, I mean, part of the problem is focus, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you took and you looked at, like the stream that goes between Elm and Pearl Street, or you looked at the stream up in Rossin Ave and all that area, or it's kind of like, where do we start, right? How do we?
I can tell you where nobody is focusing right now.
Yeah, are these documented? You said some of the streams aren't even on the like I would imagine some kind of topographical map or anything. Are they like?
Well, they did map things out on GIS years ago.
Some of it has been, like the stream, the Pearl Street stream is documented somewhat. Yep. I wrote a column about it a year or so ago, but it's in the focus area of this study because there's a flooding problem that's been identified. We know where that goes, and it would be an opportunity to say, hey, this could be a public amenity here. If instead of it just going underground right here, you could find places where it could daylight. Not going to get the whole thing daylighted right away, but the stream, the Jacobs Avenue stream, in the places where it does come up from underground, there are people that really are like, oh wow, this is a pretty little stream, and then it goes back underground for a section, and you keep chipping away at it over the years, but reminding people, hey, there's a stream here. It would be nicer to see the stream, even if we had to give up,
So are you suggesting that the Conservation Commission write something like this and send it to select board, or what? What's the form of what you were saying?
Well, I'm trying not to boss you around. I mean, if it's, I've given you, but it seems like something that people are interested in. Yeah, you
Seems
could,
like an easy one because.
it is an easy one
it's
because it's,
straight and everybody backs up to it. And if everyone would give
Yeah.
up just a little land for, and they, you think they'd like to see that straightened out. That would
well,
be an
even
easy-
there, I mean, that's all, there's a section of it that's all sort of private property and you'd want to, some of those, not all of them have projects that are being contemplated right now, but there's a section of it that goes underneath a commercial parking lot that is falling apart, that, and there's money available through a grant program to improve that. It is private property, but since it's, there's a woman that lives in those apartments there who told me that, she asked for to take a parking spot or two away from the parking area so that she could put a picnic table there and make a little place to sit, and that she asked the owner and that he said yes. And, so there's, there's,
Well, that's different from behind my house, because I think behind my house and up the hill, I think it's just things that were created to divert by
Yeah.
the people to divert it. And there's my property and then property next to me, and then that comes through the big culvert that goes under the fire station parking lot.
And Central Street used to have a big ditch. My kids used to play in it with Central Street. It was a
Central Street
wonderful
is
place to
very
play,
sad,
but it's
yeah.
all covered now.
And then it goes underneath
And I think it goes. down
parking
on
lot.
you.
the fire department parking lot and once in a while I say, we should unbury that whole stream. And I think Dave mentioned they were going to maybe do some things to the fire station parking lot. And I was like, there's a stream running through there and we should really be, that's a more,
I think David
Grandiose.
Dickey got permission to cover up his part. It was decided that it was a ditch and not a stream, or whatever your qualifications are.
yes, it runs right through there.
So, and then his hotel goes over.
So we'll need to take it under advisement, right?
Everybody should take a walk back,
Yeah,
around there, and you can see it's a pretty little,
We can go there right now.
yeah, that's the other thing.
Which way is this supposed to be facing? John Street?
I'd like
No,
to take a walk
no.
during,
It's-
right after a big rainstorm and
Right.
see what things look
Okay.
like.
Yeah.
Sign,
Helpful.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it's like if you're driving, you want to be able to,
If you're going out, Simonton Road,
so this is the line of the McGonagall watershed right here.
you're driving up John Street, which way should the sign be facing?
It's not on John Street, it's on Simonton Road.
So if you're driving down Simonton Road, which should it go?
You see, it should always be on the side of the road so you can see it from the side of the
So
road,
you're driving this way on Simonton Road?
and you see it that way, yeah.
So it should be over here then.
No, I circled where it should go. So imagine
I'm getting a question on where one of these needs to go.
imagine that you're driving.
For those watching,
It needs to go
the
right-
watershed signs are going up
It needs
as
to
we
go right
speak.
where I circled.
And there are direct
Exciting.
and immediate questions as to exactly where it
It's
should be
supposed to
located.
Yeah, so it's, if you're driving. Do you?
Yeah.
So Dave
You
is
wanna-
problem solving on the spot.
Sorry about that.
Conservation related issues, so.
That's okay.
So we'll
That
be-
relates to us.
We're excited.
That's
It's been 2 years in the making or at
On
least to get
Simonton
these
Road.
signs up, so we're.
Yeah.
On the Mechanic
We'll
Street
take a
side
break.
of Simon. So you see it if you're driving, like if you're driving.
We get
forward.
way off planned agenda.
Well, we're just calling this other.
Just because the person is like in the process of putting this in.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can't tell which orientation.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
moving, right?
Um,
I have an unrelated question,
Okay,
totally unrelated, when
okay,
we're ready.
I'm ready. And then we'll circle back.
For Dave and company, Allison, I'm curious what the reaction to that bridge that we put up to go from Harbor Park to the little island was or has been.
That's probably not a Conservation Commission thing. That's just not
We can
gonna be
defer
good
it.
to,
I would
For-
have thought so.
For an
I mean,
after-hours
in terms of what the reaction.
Yeah, I just generally, maybe it doesn't belong in this discussion, which is fine with me.
There's a really big range of reactions.
Yeah.
I think that's a larger conversation. That's, some of it is a
Okay,
legal matter.
So I see it's open now. I've seen people on,
Well, they took
took
it,
away
they
the-
took it, they took the whole thing out yesterday.
the whole bridge is gone?
Yes,
Oh,
but it's, it's nearby.
oh.
okay.
But it's, it'll go back up in the spring.
Mhm.
But it's a huge, it was, it was a private donation.
Yeah, I know some of the
Mm-hmm.
history, but
I went out on the other day and it's not an easy place to walk on. It's very uneven and small and
It's been a long time fantasy, and I'm not quite sure if people think of it as something that you see from the sea, or if they really want to get on the island, or if it's part of a walk around the whole harbor, but it keeps coming right back up. It's like burying the wires.
It's one of the major things that was discussed even just yesterday from the designers about the public landing and the harbor resiliency, is the connectivity between public spaces, and people would like to be able to get there to be pedestrian access between the public landing and Harbor Park.
right.
And it's very, the bridge was not for that purpose. It was a thing that was desired for landscaping purposes and landscaping maintenance, and in order to enable a clearer view of the falls from certain vantage
Right.
points. And the select board agreed to that as part of a short-term sort of compromise to try to
Mhm.
make a certain group of people happy by trimming trees to improve a view, as perceived by, some people that wanted to see some views. And, the reality of getting to that island is, it's a 45-foot span. It's further away than some realize. Getting out there to do any kind of tree trimming is very challenging with the dam the
Yeah.
way it is, pushing water. So there's sort of competing interests of wanting to be able to have the water flowing in an aesthetically pleasing way over an artificial structure, and then also wanting to be able to clear trees in that area in order to see the artificial water feature more clearly. And I think the thing that some people value about that area is whatever part of it might be natural, and some people value something different. And it was an interesting proposal that, has had the potential to make some people happy and some people not happy. Some people thought, oh, perfect, a bridge for landscaping purposes is a nice compromise because it might get people to an area that they had wanted to be just as a vantage point to take a picture of the harbor or to see the falls from a different area. Other people felt like they don't want to see people there. It's kind of funny because some of the people that you would expect to be happy about it are not happy. And there was landscaping done. A bunch of trees were removed. People are going.
Legally do it according to.
Everything
shore
is
zone?
done. Everything was done, very legally and by the book. And some people would like to see it as the first step to get, the second hop over to Harbor Park. And that is a long-term goal that is in the comprehensive plan, the downtown master plan, and has been voted on by people. But the devil is always in the details of, how things look from different places to
Right.
different people and who gets involved in the conversation. And the whole area behind those private buildings there is public land that has been really treated as private property
Right.
for many years and used as private parking and landscaped in ways that are, make it look more private. And so the garden club is in the process of, they're working with Blake Sanborn for a little bit from Richardson and Associates to come up with Public Works put grass down there and did the abutment for the bridge and used that as an opportunity to also put grass and stuff over the gravel parking and kind of lay the groundwork for the garden club to be able to do their thing. So it's not, everything that you see now isn't the final product. And some of it was connected to that bridge, and, some of it isn't, but there's going to be, more sort of publicly accessible space there. And there's going to be more plantings in that whole area that used to be gravel parking.
Yeah.
So, and
It's
the
much
trees
more
on the
appealing.
island, well, yeah.
For sure, and I can see this, it's controversial, right? So, but my main intent for asking was simply people ask me about it. Oh, what's going on with that bridge thing? And it's having like a statement, like this is the story about the bridge, right? Without.
Oh, there's something on the town website that
Yeah.
explains it.
Good, that's good to know.
Yeah.
And
Perfect. All you have to say is,
that's perfect.
you can go to the town.
Yeah, yeah.
website.
It's not a summary of reactions to it, but it's a.
Well,
yeah.
I did ask that question, and what's the reaction been? So, I probably did.
There are pictures of monks out there with a thumbs up, smiling,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah, good.
you can see different people are. It's so funny because then people say, oh, it's controversial, and it's controversial. Okay, I'll say it's controversial, and it's like anything in Camden,
I was gonna say, every project I've done is somebody that doesn't like something and there's somebody that does.
Yeah, I know how it is.
And just because that's in the public landing, and there's just
Yeah,
more people
right.
focusing
Yeah.
on it. And, I mean, the reality is, somebody donated money, kept on wanting to donate money,
That's the bottom line.
and they wanted to donate money for three things: to fix the gate, to landscape the island, and to repoint the mortar. We came up with a quote for all three of those things. We got the quote for the mortar, we got the quote for the damn gate. And then when they went to get the quote for the landscaping the island, they said, well, we need a bridge to get out there. And we used the people who donated the money's landscaper to do it. The landscaper got a design for the bridge. They showed the people who wanted to donate the money the bridge. They said, yes, that's what we want. We put those three things down on a piece of paper and said, we'll accept the money. These are the three things we're going to do.
Right.
Then we did them. And then once we did them, they found out that the bridge part wasn't popular with some of their friends. So then they backed out of it and
Right.
distanced themselves from it and said they didn't want it that way and it was different. But the design of the bridge is exactly the bridge that they gave us that they wanted to be built. And that's what we put there.
Which just had to have the engineering done and the.
Right. They said the bridge on it, after they gave me the design, it said must be weight rated and engineered and must have the abutments engineered. So I had to do that piece on my own, which was the part that took a lot of time because, you can't just find anybody to do that. So once that was all done and we started building it, then all of a sudden, certain people didn't want the island to the bridge because they felt it was associated with people being able to see fish coming up the river, and it got tied into all of that. And then it became unpopular with that group of people. That's the reality.
Okay.
That's the
Sounds
truth.
real.
Yep.
Huh?
I get
Sounds
it.
real.
That's what happened. And then,
Yeah.
but
Which is
none of
very odd because it was nothing that
none of it was our idea.
Yep.
It was all the people who donated the money's idea, and it was all built and done exactly the way they wanted it.
I think sometimes things just look a little bigger in person.
We
But
live here.
we could talk about this all
Yeah,
day. Let's
no,
just.
we
Next.
won't. We won't.
I mean, that's what happened though.
I know.
That's enough.
You
I
got
don't-
it dumped on you. Sorry.
So I think I'm going to circle back, unless there's anything else from you, Dave, at this point.
Nope.
I'm going to circle back to Allison and any select board updates and or kind of in tandem, I'm sure it's part of the update, but I was unable to attend the Zoom, the harbor resiliency plan update, and I assume that will be part of what you will probably talk about, or could talk about, in terms of updates, but that was
Sure.
certainly has relevance. And then anything else you can, in whatever order you see fit.
Yeah, that was really positive. The harbor resiliency plan has had, they've done a series of public input meetings, and there's going to be another one or another couple. But yesterday there was a meeting with town volunteers and staff, elected officials, and some committee members, and Richardson Associates kind of went through some of the issues with like challenges facing the harbor. I thought they showed some pictures. They did a great job kind of summarizing. A lot of it revolved around the idea of like, do we wall ourselves off from the water or not? Like, what's our approach? Can we live with water? Or are we trying to just keep all the water out? And it was recorded, and apparently it's going to be uploaded. Today they're having a meeting with all of or at least a large number of the private property owners along the inner harbor. But they showed some really great examples of places where there's been like adaptation that allows for the working waterfront type of wharf, but then also allowing some biodiversity and some examples of that I thought were pretty great, and actually stuff that I hadn't seen before. They talked about some of the input they've received in previous meetings. There was discussion about the focus area for this phase is the inner harbor, which is essentially being defined as steamboat landing, all the way around the inner harbor to the yacht club. And so there's already quite a bit of that is both private and already walled off, like, super developed, basically. And so there aren't as many opportunities. A lot of our public space, like the public access points and Lake Beach and things, fall outside of that. But they were talking about how one of their big things they were looking at was connectivity and people getting from one public space to another, and how maybe some of the adaptation, if rather than each private property owner just sort of doing their own thing, if we can meet this, especially on Lower Bayview Street, is really susceptible. Not just the private property, but some of the public infrastructure too, like the road. So, are there opportunities to do boardwalks or things that could be done in a way that's beneficial to both wildlife, the public, and the private property owner? Like opportunities that could be created if we got grant funding and worked together rather than each little building trying to do something. So, that was just one. They said they were going to come up with different recommendations for different places, and then they mentioned something like and then some kind of big vision too. I've been really quite impressed with them, and the project examples that they've shown from other places. So that would be worth, once that becomes available, I can send the link. And they're also, they said they're happy to have anybody contact them with input, after the fact too. So it's not like everything has been missed. If anybody wants to send something. It probably would be good for the Conservation Commission to say something, because there were Harbor Committee members there, and
Yeah, I fully intended to go, but work, I have a job, and then it got distracted and, I was doing other things.
yeah, I think, looking at any of the presentations
Yeah.
that he has given, so he gave one at the, or at least one or two at the library. There was one that was done in conjunction with Pete Slavinsky, the state geologist.
That would be taped. I understood that the town one was going to be recorded and available, but it didn't sound good. They
It
didn't say
is.
they were going to do the property owners one.
No,
Oh, they
the
may
one,
not, yeah.
the meeting are you talking about the meeting that was yesterday? That one's been recorded and they'll be.
Yeah, I was
they'll be on
wondering
the
though, I
website.
didn't know that those smaller groups were being recorded and shared, but when they said that the town one was, I was wondering that too, that the private property owner one, I'd be interested to.
Yeah,
Um,
I asked about that at the first meeting.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. And it didn't sound like that one was, that the property owner one was going to be recorded. Maybe it's delicate.
Interesting. One of the things I asked was if they were thinking about, trying to help identify things that would be beneficial only private property owners or specific properties, and as opposed to the public good, and how, my concern is that some of the things that private property owners might want to do and have wanted to do is, actually not in the best public interest, and, how we can kind of navigate that. And they seemed just really acutely aware of those types of things. And they kind of laughed and said, when I said that, and said, oh, I'm smiling because we've been talking about this constantly. And so, but I think any kind of input is good, because they seem to be doing a good job
I think they're
incorporating it.
sensitive to a lot of these things.
Yeah. The whole theme was, kind of working with nature and trying to find nature-based solutions and innovative ways, and how more funding can be found for these things when there is a public and an environmental benefit. And the project examples they showed were, I thought, just really good. The other thing that that was said at our select board meeting last night is that they're going to have Richardson and Associates look at the Lake Beach shoreline, which made me very happy, because I think we've seen that the wall there is failing, and that approach of just bigger, better wall and steeper stairs over and over again
They
is,
had imagery of that showing what had happened, and at least the first one that I zoomed in on.
yeah, so right in
Lake
it.
Beach erosion there.
Mhm. And so, that's not part of this
Oh,
inner
okay.
harbor feasibility study, but I was glad to hear that they, Audra and whoever else, we're going to have them take a look at Lake Beach. And they're, they also said that they're going to fix the, this is a Dave thing, I guess, maybe, the
Access.
harbor access points, the Harbor Road, which has never really been that well done, but then Marine Avenue, which washed out about a year ago and hasn't been fixed.
Have you ever been there? Is there Harbor Road Marine access points? Because
We have, Rebecca and I did the
Yeah, we've-
invasive
all of
plant
them.
surveys on those.
pretty cool spot.
Yeah, they are really cool, but they're very inaccessible.
Have you ever been to the Sherman Point one?
I think we've been to all of them. The one,
I've been down just on my own.
Been on the Sherman Point one at the
No,
very
oh,
end?
Well, yeah,
There's not
I
even a
don't
sign there.
understand that
I don't
very
think we
well.
made the Sherman Point
And-
one.
So frustrating.
That down there was private property.
They-
so I never-
they-
That's what they want you to think,
that.
yeah.
But if you go to the very end,
Yeah.
you can cut to the water right there.
You think you could just put a sign up over there? I know that's not your department and you get lots of things dumped on you, but
I can put a public access point.
they made a sign. This isn't really fair to you. This is a Parks and Rec responsibility. But since you're here, if you know anyone over there, then
Anywho,
One over there.
I'm just joking. Like at Parks and Rec, if you have any,
Oh,
I'm just being funny.
I mean, I think it'd
Um,
be easy if,
If you have any
Easy.
sway,
I think it'd be just as easy for us to just go pound a post in and put public access.
and say the Conservation Commission told you to do it.
It could be just a metal sign like the conservation signs.
No, they have them. They've made, the ones
They
that
have one
are,
that says Sherman Point.
yes. That,
Is there any parking
and there was
there?
confusion about where they were supposed to put it, and that was the last I heard.
Like Sherman Point's a long walk, so is there any parking over there if you got there?
Right on the left-hand side as you're facing the water.
Yeah.
They made a gate there, but you can park right there.
Okay. I haven't been there for years, but I always thought, I'm going between these houses and maybe I shouldn't be here.
What you gotta worry about is if you go out at low tide and then you walk beyond it and then the tide comes in,
Yeah.
then you can't get back.
Yeah.
So you gotta go up on someone's property and that's what they don't like. And then you walk across their property to get back.
Which is, a possibility really anytime you visit the ocean anywhere. But, like you could go to, yes, it is a good thing to be aware of.
There was a lot of hanky-panky way back.
Exactly.
This is supposed to be public,
Exactly.
and it got sold out from underneath. You probably all know.
And there are a few different layers there. And the Conservation Commission was very involved in the past with these, what?
Hanky-panky.
No, she's right. That's a perfectly good way to describe it. And the Conservation Commission was really involved, Sid Lindsley, in trying to secure these public access points, and they made a huge difference. Marine Avenue, Beacon Ave, the Curtis Island Overlook. A lot of those got made better, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And a lot of them got turned into just overlooks with the idea that, you just look, but really there really could be access points for people to get down to the water.
some of them.
Well, one of the issues is that we've allowed private property owners to do extensive riprap on, eroding coastal bluffs. And it's turned these like sandy eroding bluffs into cliffs that are like a precipice that's hard to get down. So, but there's a variety of things that could be done to make them more accessible, not like wheelchair accessible, but
Aren't these unstable enough that they're just going to keep going?
I hope so. But I don't,
Last time I rode out there was some house that had a huge boulder wall built.
Where?
Out in Sherman Cove.
Cove, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and there's like a new one every day. There's like, there's an excavator that just lives in Sherman's
I
Cove
thought
now.
there used to be rules against that.
Exactly.
I guess there aren't anymore.
Well, this goes back to what we said
The
before.
engineers have gotten better at working the permits to be able to get it done.
If they say they're repairing erosion. And so that but that goes back to what we said before. It would be good if we could, or I can, to say that what the Conservation Commission would like for all of the pending, NERPA
That would
apps
be, that should
to
be,
come to us.
you would, yeah, you should ask to be able to, that should be a policy that the Conservation Commission gets to look at all the NERPA permits for coastal NERPA permits before they get submitted.
Look at all of
Well,
them.
back at the Inner Harbor resiliency stuff, is there more options than wall or put everything up?
That was what no, there were definitely more options
Really?
than that.
So just to speak to a more conservation-minded concept than walls of rock. rock is part of nature, but not the only solution. DEP has been working across not just DEP, but the water division through DEP and permitting, and there's been a huge group of professionals and myself amongst them reviewing nature-based solutions that will be part of the best practice going forward for both coastal and freshwater systems. And it's out in draft form now with a number of non-hardscape solutions and combinations depending on the severity of slope. And, some of them are duplicative in both marine and freshwater systems, and some are unique to each of them because of the nature of, the tides and the salinity and so on and so forth. So they have been working, behind the scenes, as it were. They've been testing certain applications. This work has been going on elsewhere and is going on. I've, been part of doing some of these projects, smaller projects, mostly on, but not exclusively on freshwater systems. So there are alternatives, and they are going to be made more public. There's going to be an additional person in the non-point source training department, because currently it is a department of one, John McLean.
What could they do? What could they
going to be
do?
hiring another person to
Like, instead of like just the Boulder shoreline, like what would be an example of,
Well, vegetated buffers are first and foremost, and
like
so
what kind of vegetated buffer though?
depends on if you're in a salt or marine
Like,
system, but like
in the ocean,
native
like-
plants, you
Like-
can do. I mean, every site is a little different because you don't know. It depends on the angle of, the wind coming in. If
Right.
you have undercuts, is it a 15-foot elevation or is it a 4-foot elevation? So there's you would approach it slightly differently, but there are ways of doing brush cut, sort of like, what wattles look like, the bed, so
Okay,
the woven
yeah.
wattles, and then you can even, if it's a more severe slope, put some riprap on top of that, and that's actually the studies that are showing and the science is showing that they're better than putting a geotextile behind it. It gives more opportunities for those voids, for the shifts that happen, the natural
So
shifts
put the
that
rocks on
happen.
top of the
And
wattles?
then, yeah, you can, yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, so that's just one kind of small, it's a, 50, 75 page, I don't know, booklet of best practices and a whole ranking system of if this, then that, if that, then this, and then you have A, B, C, D as options, et cetera. But yeah, it's, not designed to be a particularly one size fits all. That's definitely not like, oh, you have erosion on a shoreline. Oh, you should do riprap. That we've come to the realization that is, for a multitude of reasons, not always the best or necessary approach to. So, but
I don't know, I looked at that big slope boulder wall, and
Mhm.
if the water's got a lot of power, and if it takes out the first few rows, I would think all that other stuff in the heavy rain would just,
Well, they just did one on, is it a
And it
Marine
does do that.
Ave, and right where they put the new pier in, when you're facing the water on the left. And that big storm we had, this December storm, is that what it was?
January 10th.
January, December,
There
January,
was a January,
March.
big January.
There was like
10th storm.
two in a row, kind of,
Mar-
but
yeah.
that destroyed that whole thing. So the guy's got to go out and rebuild that whole wall. But it's like the wall you're talking about, the same kind of deal. So it does fall apart.
and like on Bayview Street, are there other options other than raising everything up? Because I can't.
Abandon
see-
it.
Yeah, it's either that, but I can't see any other options in raising everything up, because that's a filled-in street anyway.
Mhm.
And that's a lot of, give up a lot of money or pay a lot of money to raise it all up.
Mhm.
But there are different approaches to raising it, I think, is what you can do that in a way that allows water to come in and out, or because when you do raise up all the buildings,
With everything on stilts.
that is one thing that's been done. But you can also have like thinking about like the area where the building or the street or whatever meets the ocean, having that be like the type of material that's there and the way that the water is allowed to interact with the land makes a big difference, whether it's just like one concrete slab that's just flat like this, or you have a combination of things that, like granite that juts out a little bit, and then tiered things that come in, and then an area, they showed some like vegetative, like almost like marshy areas that are just kind of cut into the boardwalk. And then the buildings are behind that. So you've kind of built something out a little bit that is,
Sort of deflects it.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't change the fact that that the buildings still need major work, but you almost like recreate a little bit of intertidal space that can be buffering, and because the way that the waves meet the shore makes a difference in how destructive they are. So the more that can get broken up, and that was what was kind of interesting, was to see like, okay, how can you make like working waterfront areas be biologically diverse, and you can create these things that jet out, and then the fish can go underneath. Seattle did this amazing seawall where the whole seawall was designed to be like a nursery for juvenile, like migrating some kind of salmon. So I think it all does have to be raised up, but it's like how you do that. We've, those condos there, for instance, that parking lot like floods all the time, and
Lapping up on Bayview Street.
right now it like hits up against propane tanks and whatever else. And do you say, okay, maybe to those condos, like those can stay there, and you can, there are rules about how high buildings can be right now. And so if the town together were to say, we'll let buildings that are right along the harbor be raised up higher on the condition that
Excuse me.
they have to, participate in this, public boardwalk that, the area that gets influenced by the water is, has to be designed in this way, and it would be accessible to the public, and it would be made of these types of materials that can be,
Well, it seems like the Loch Marina condos, they're already up pretty high off the level of Bayview Street. It's just the parking garage that's the problem. They might have to give it up. Or use
right,
it
like could that be
intermittent.
a beach or something, or like the town has a big drain, that whole the problematic stream that we were talking about, that Jacobs Avenue stream that comes down there, and somebody had the brilliant idea of the whole outfall for that goes underneath their parking lot and into the out, because it used to be used to fill up the Loch Marina.
Why don't they block that old rusty gate off?
They told me one time, I was doing some stormwater surveying down there, and these people came out and they said that they had wanted to do something with the gate, that they were told by somebody that the town considered those gates historic and they couldn't be modified. I was like, oh.
You rip it out and fill it in with concrete, the same level as everything else, and it would probably help a lot.
Oh, but I don't know if,
But it seems to me the living area is up there pretty high. And
People don't even tell.
Well
Sometimes
supported.
there's cars parked down there and nobody told them what
Yeah.
happened.
yeah, which is really bad for the environment. They also have a dumpster that floods sometimes, and all of that stuff is bad. When we have things that flood, it's not just bad for the property owners, it's bad for everything
Yeah.
usually.
Like the waterfront. I mean, that, I went down and watched that deck go
Washing
like
it.
that, and PG Willie's, they're about the same level. All that stuff's gonna have to.
You know, what's interesting about the waterfront, somebody was telling me that that deck actually is already floating in some
Was it?
ways. Like they've done, it's not, that one didn't get nearly, even though we all watched it go, they had to replace a few boards
I'm surprised they didn't have to replace the whole thing.
because there's already some like adaptive give to it. Whereas the Loch Marina condos, the Harbor Square condos, their decks got just obliterated.
Yeah.
Well, they could move all that stuff up to the living level and they'd be way up above the water.
Yeah, part of the issue is that the entire, for a structure like that, the structural supports are part of what's compromised. And
Oh.
so, you know, that right now, like if they were to take those gates, somebody talked about actually taking the gates and making them so water couldn't come in. But what happens is that then the pressure, it's part of what helps to keep things together, is the pressure of the water flooding on top of the parking lot too, rather than,
So equal pressure
going
on the side of
under,
the wall.
you know, right. And so it's a little bit that more complicated. But there's certainly a better, you know, if those condos are going to be viable in the long term, there are ways that they could work with nature better. And hopefully that's the kind of thing that that Richardson Associates is going to be able to tell us, you know, these types of things might be beneficial to everybody. Or, I mean, I think sometimes there are just not win-win scenarios. What you find is all those properties along there, none of them are going down in value. They're all going up, despite the massive threat that everybody is seeing. Their investors are continuing to see this as something that's worth putting a bunch of money into the status quo, which is really problematic when you think about like some of the solution to some of these problems in places is going to be government buyouts. So like there has to be some retreat somewhere. And as long as
But the general public doesn't see that on the horizon in their lifetime, and so in that.
in some places it's already happening.
Well, of course, I know this is happening all over the place, and it's happening in other countries as well. I mean, there's evidence. If you actually want to
Mhm.
find it or see it, it's.
No matter what happens now, this could be a lot of money.
And that, I mean, right. And so how much public money do we want to dump into adaptation in certain areas? And, but it's very hard for people to, you don't start imagining the possibility of retreat and being bought out when you see your, you know, property values are still going up.
Rebecca, you need to turn your microphone on.
Not sure, but it's just going to sound like.
I didn't want to talk, you know,
Oh.
I'll turn it on if I need to talk and off if I'm not talking.
Okay.
But I guess,
One thing you might want to be aware of is the Curtis Island discussions.
okay.
I guess that's the end of my statement.
I watched that part of the meeting.
And
I
so,
volunteered to go out and work on it, but I don't imagine anything's gonna happen till spring.
and now, what part did you volunteer? Because I've heard,
Just, you know, they have a list of categories, things you do, and I said paint, carpentry, cleanup, brush cutting, you know, no masonry. They want to know what you're interested in. So I just gave them the things I was interested in, and they have to call me. There's a place on there, a friend of mine put me on it because you have to do it online, but there's a place for an email and they just put no email, or I left it blank and they wouldn't accept my application. So we went back and put no email, call on phone, and it took it. So,
yeah, so that's one side. So there's the Curtis Island Foundation and then there's the town. And
I think I talked to the guy out there who started this when I went out there last in the fall. there were a few people out there and I told him I was interested in helping out. And he said, well, sign up. So I did.
And so, I mean, I think that what's, how do
I know I saw you weren't wild about putting a lot of money into it or
well, I think what.
committing the town to a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, it's several $1 million of, and there's talk about taking the steamboat landing floats out there and putting ramps and
Can the town
major.
just say, we're going to give you this set amount and that's it, a donation.
What I think is going to be concerning to people, especially, you know, like some of the things that I've heard from you, Steve, is that the impact of major construction out there and the idea of providing access with massive floats and ramps and something that's never been there before. And so I've always heard a lot of resistance to the idea of making it possible for big boats to be able to pull up.
Yeah,
Just
There.
temporary access or permanent access?
It's up for discussion.
Access for doing the repairs.
Yeah, and then you.
And then the question is, do we have to keep that access? I just see disabled people getting stuck up there, people who don't, you know,
Mhm.
think.
I think whenever you take a wild place that's never been, a wild place that's never been accessed, and then you make it really easy to get to.
Now, that's the part that bothers me.
You-
It's
you
like,
ru- you
it's
ruin
like
it.
Acadia, you know, it's being loved to death, and I hate to
Right.
see that. I've
Right.
never been to Yellowstone or all these big national parks, and if I never do, that's fine, but I'm glad they're there.
The best places you go to, like the most unique places, are the places that are hard to get to.
Yeah.
And if you can drive a car to, like, if you can, you can drive a car to Grand Lake Stream and fish Grand Lake Stream, and it's easy. Everybody does it. It's not the same experience as going to the Rapid River and having to hike down a trail to get to the thing. It's totally different. They're both two of the best rivers in the state, but one's totally different experience than the other. You know, it's
It's a
just,
good analogy.
that's just the easiest way to say it.
I hate to see places get overrun.
Well, I mean, if you
Just
think
takes away
about
the
it, the
experience.
reason why it's probably preserved the way it is now is because it's hard to get to, right?
Yeah.
It hasn't changed.
That's
That's
part
fine
of the
with me.
allure of the
Right.
place, though. It's
You, like,
beautiful.
you go to the Allagash Wilderness Waterway, right? You can't use a motorized piece of equipment. You can't use an ice drill. You can't use anything. You have to use a chisel. You can't do, it's meant to stay that way because they want to preserve it the way it is. So you got to have some of that somewhere.
Mhm.
And once you give all of that up, you don't have any of it left.
I mean, Curtis Island has been maintained over the years. Those buildings have been maintained by whatever somebody can bring over on a very small boat,
Yep.
little by little. And we were.
Why is it not being
Incre-
considered, that being, is that still part of the consideration, or have they
No.
leapt
Well,
over
we're-
that and
this
said
is-
they have to put in some?
That's what the
Temporary.
foundation is saying. And so we're trying to get to, they would like us to sign a memorandum of agreement with them. And I think that we need to be really upfront with everybody about what we're signing up for and what the expectation is. Because there isn't for years, we were lucky to have somebody that was wanting to be out there during the summer and tending to it. And they chipped away at the maintenance and, you know, it's a rough environment out there and it always has been. And there's only so much you can do and things have fallen down in the past and not been rebuilt. And, you know,
You'd be the perfect guy out there.
yeah.
Actually, I
Well,
wanted
you
to
should-
at one point, but
you-
they said the conifers got it locked up. And I said, well,
Oh,
okay.
No, you would be a great caretaker out there.
You'd be a good person. Like,
I wanted to at one point. I looked into it and they said, no, that's been
Well,
taken.
yeah, but so I think that there's now a feeling like in order to be able to maintain all of these buildings in the, you know, precise way that they may have looked their best in 1889, then we need all of this equipment to be able to get out there and we need this access and we need all of this. I think that, and that, you know, the idea of saving Curtis Island and I know that the people that are working on that are also environmentally sensitive people for the most part, and that
Oh, yeah. they're
they
good
do
people.
care about, like, it's a really wonderful, especially the scalings are just wonderful, wonderful people.
I
I
don't see
do
where they
think-
have to have a lot of heavy equipment out there. If you do it like ants and a lot of people carrying stuff,
That's what I would prefer to
They
see.
worst thing is getting up that bank.
They say the contractors require it, and the
Oh.
trouble is if you get stuck, well, because contractors expect a lot of machinery and all sorts of heavy things now.
But there's
Nope.
always a contractor that is focused on hand tools or
But they're
Exactly.
looking at doing things, yeah.
preservation and
You can
and the
hire
like,
somebody to
and
clear a lot with horses if you still
you
want to.
can. And
You
so
know,
it
it's
takes
just-
a little bit more questions and digging, but it is
Be talking to
possible.
Mike. I mean, I don't know what's.
So they,
done
you know,
now.
some of the big donors really want to be able to get out there. There are a lot of competing interests. And I think in terms of, there does need to be a larger conversation about what are we trying to protect? Are we trying to protect the natural wildness? Are we trying to, like, you know, I don't personally want to see any seawalls, any like erosion control type of anything out there, because to me, the beauty of it is the
Pretty
completely
much a
natural shoreline.
Rock anyway,
Yeah.
except for where you land. Everything else is pretty much just rock. And
No,
pretty
so they're
high
looking
up.
at, they were proposing putting a ramp access with attached to the old floats from Steamboat Landing.
It's that rustic, rugged beauty.
I can see
It's
that
like-
temporarily to get things out there,
Yeah,
but not,
the-
I would like to see it go back the way it was and you land out there and you got a nice set of stairs to get up there and that's all you need.
But it's going to be years of this, and
Well, it takes years.
Just insist that it goes back to those conditions so you don't get flooded with people.
I just think that the town doesn't have millions of dollars to be able to spend, that we should be looking at the full thing, and, you know, maybe not all of the buildings that need to be preserved. Because
I think you weatherproof them, then you go from
Well,
there.
I watched, they want to raise the barn and redo the stone foundation. They say, yeah, is that really necessary? I mean, you can fix the barn up and put it on a big timber.
Right, crib work or
Yeah.
something, yeah.
To me, that's,
I mean,
Little
that's just
far.
that part is supposed to be like $500,000. So, and I know they plan to fundraise a lot, but one of the things that happened when we did the project at the Snow Bowl was that a lot of it was fundraised for, and then there's like a maintenance ongoing, you have this larger beast. And so,
well, I kind of agree with starting with the barn because that gives them a place to work out of, store stuff. I was out there and I don't remember it being that big. I made the trail signs that were out there years ago. And I asked the guy, I said, any of those trail signs still around? And yeah, they have some of them in that barn. They said, well, if you need some new ones, I'll make them.
yeah, so I
And-
just think it's
yeah.
something that we should be paying
Yeah,
attention
so
to. There's,
certainly
we've-
something we could talk to and send an email conversation.
there isn't a part of the agreement with the there was talk years and years ago about making it more accessible, and I remember the Conservation Commission said, no, there's something in that agreement that we have with the federal government when they gave it to us that said something about, you know, it being considered a sensitive area. So they're supposed to be getting us the agreement, because that was cited as the reason that every single building needs to be fully restored. And I think a lot of it is just comes down to what we start on, also into what, you know, standard and, but I think the access part is going to be an important thing. To me, it's just crazy to be making it possible to have like ramp and float or pier access to Curtis Island when we can't even repair our public access points for Sherman's Cove. But it's, you know, we don't want that whole thing to completely fall apart. And we have a lot of people that are, at that Mike's point of, there are a lot of, what the foundation has been really good at doing is getting a lot of support and interest and you know, people like Steve willing to go out there, and we don't want to, you know, crush that initiative, but I think we want to be at the same time careful about what we sign up for, and that before the select board goes and signs some kind of agreement that then gets used as a basis for sort of what the town has agreed to, that there's sort of broad public input on the overall plan, like where we,
Could the
Cutting.
Conservation Commission make a statement that they advise that it not be permanent, large-scale access when the work is finished, that it
It certainly is in
You also have to
keeping with
think
the
about what's
historic
gonna-
integrity and, you know, and the overall, and the coastal shoreline, you know, I mean, it's just another, you don't want any additional structures becoming flotsam and jetsam and.
right, I mean, how do we
harbor.
keep people off of there during the 3 years that it's,
Yeah.
or however many years it's happening too, just like going, it's hard to get out there right now, but as soon as you can pull a power boat up, and
no.
Yeah.
it's
it
just
needs
like,
to
how do
be
we,
prepared.
how would we handle that even in the interim?
A float, but for construction purposes only, no private docking or anything like that. They got to pull up on the beach like they always had to.
That's part of the allure of going there.
Yeah, you go in
It's
your
beautiful,
kayak,
and,
Right.
canoe, or
Yeah,
rowboat.
you know, that's why it's beautiful, right? I mean,
To me, yeah,
It's not gonna stay that
spectacular.
way.
I mean, you see kayaks out there all the time, and it's just, that's what that place is for, right? Individual access, and we've gone there a bunch of times with our inflatable and had picnics out there with our
Right.
grandkids, and it's just so much fun because it's
Yeah, because you know there's not
quiet
going to be a ton of people out there.
and- Yeah, and it's just
And it's
the rustic beauty.
challenging,
Yeah,
and people, there should,
Yeah.
but I just think if it was made easy, it would not be the same place. It
No.
would be a
No.
wreck.
and you got to plan around the tides. You know, it's what makes it fun.
Well, a lot of people think everything's got to be accessible to absolutely everybody,
right.
I know.
which is
Oh.
nice, be nice in a perfect world, but
It wouldn't be a perfect one.
So
We
let's,
have 15 minutes left. Is there anything in terms of priority topics here or things that have been left unsaid? I've got two things literally on the agenda.
Barb said that she lost connection.
Barbara's bought new planters
Nice.
for the streetlights.
Hmm.
Go around.
Hold on,
Around the post.
your microphone is.
Can't hear you, Dave.
Thank
Can't
you.
hear you.
So I said, the garden club or Barb brought in these new examples of these planters that are, they're plastic, but they kind of are in two pieces and they wrap around the light pole to plant the flowers. Because if anybody didn't realize, the flowers last year didn't do too good because they're kind of a mesh basket with that cocoa liner, so it doesn't hold water all that well. And if you don't water them well to begin with, they just don't grow. So these are supposedly able to hold water in the bottom. So we'll be putting those up. I don't know if that counts, but she brought those down to me the
how
other
many
day.
man hours does it take someone every morning to go around and water those things?
Well, that's part of the issue, you know.
You know, you'd be perfect.
You got a lot of jobs now.
Volunteer?
When
I
you-
wouldn't mind doing
He
it.
may not be able to
You got a
because he might
truck
be
with
out
a
on the
pump on it,
island.
We would have gladly lent it to you. I mean, the thing is that our department has so much stuff we have to do. We can't spend like 2 hours a
Yeah.
day watering flowers.
Just collecting garbage must be a monumental task.
3 days a week, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, but I think they have a volunteer, they got a pump truck, water truck now, but you know, talk with Barb about it. She might need a backup or something.
For sure.
Um,
Especially because she's going to little bike camping trips there too, you know, if it's not her out there planting, somebody else is, you know,
mhm.
for
I
sure.
wouldn't be till spring, and I'm volunteering. I'm putting my name in a lot of places to keep myself busy, so I may be busy.
Well, when you come back from the island, you can do the
That's what I
plants.
said. You can do the fall watering, yeah, you'll be in.
On your way back.
Oh dear. Good. Anything else on your end? Okay. Anybody else?
The NERPA permit is.
I was thinking maybe I would just go ask Jeremy about that right now,
Yeah, that's a good idea. That would be a great.
rather than continuously saying that somebody should.
I have a
Like a little
question
field
for you.
trip now you say you want to do?
I was
Gonna
just,
leave?
Oh,
Because I have a question for you that's totally unrelated to any of this stuff.
okay.
I won't be far. I was just gonna run across the
You're gonna
hall.
come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want waste curriculum for schools? I saw that you were talking about the transfers, the transfer station
Mhm.
people, and you wanted to have an educational.
You know
program.
who's really, do you happen to know Robin Tarantino?
Sorry.
Do you happen to know Robin Tarantino?
I
She's
don't know.
really lovely. She's a new Midco Solid Waste board member from Lincolnville. And she is really interested in doing education in the schools. And you would
She
like
probably
her.
got lots of ideas, but
No,
I
but
have a
you-
lot of
you would-
curriculum
You should
that is just waiting to
Mhm.
be dumped.
Be nice for you to talk to her. Do you know Sue Silverio?
Yeah,
She's friends with Sue Silverio too. She just
I can remember that.
people like you that I just hold in high esteem. She would be a good one to. I'm a little concerned about being the conduit for all of that because I'm worried I might forget to give it to her, and I'm not a good person to hold on to paperwork.
No, I know, but I mean, I don't know that. No, I don't. As a matter of fact, I don't think that at all.
That's
But-
nice.
But I need to know, I need to have their name and I need to get myself to that point.
If you have problems.
You have a problem, you go to the Midco Solid Waste website.
Or
And
you
it
could also just drop stuff off there.
Yeah,
it has the contacts
Yeah.
there.
okay, thanks.
Alright.
And I want you both to see this book that I brought.
I
which-
pulled up one that says computer mapping, the use of computer map.
I really would like to
From the
get your
90s.
book. One thing I think we should really focus on as a conservation commission is getting copies of your book available and
Well,
out there.
I've got some boxes now and
You always say that, but then I never know how to get to the next step. Like if you're willing to sell, can we have them somewhere to sell? Could we
Oh.
sell them in the town office?
Sure. What the way it works now is my son-in-law who does plant, he organizes the printing and designs, et cetera, of things like Guide to Acadia and Baxter and all these things up in Gouldsboro. And he has a printer, so I just ask him if I want more. I don't know. I mean, obviously you might want a system, but he's still there, even if, if I'm not. So
Do you have some right now?
I do, I have a box and a half. I just gave 10 to Owl and the Turtle because they had some demand.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's great.
Have you ever seen it?
I do. I have an autographed copy from
Me too.
Beatty.
Yeah, he's my neighbor.
It was thoughtful. It was very thoughtful.
It's out of date though, a lot of,
It's not really out of date.
no.
I
all
love the
concepts.
illustrations. I love the way it's put together.
I haven't seen it.
I mean, it's
Knew there was one.
extraordinarily relevant because it's all about natural history.
Oh, for me, it's 12. And for
Okay.
Owl and the
I'll buy
Turtle,
one
it's
off you.
20.
Well, I think
Very
it's
well done.
Yeah,
of
it's
note,
amazing.
as we're getting to the end here, of note, January 1st is a Wednesday. So I'm going to think that the office will be closed and no one will want to attend a Conservation Commission meeting on January 1st. So
The
I'd
8th,
like to move it to January 8th. We'll have to send an email around, which includes Janice, just to be double, triply sure that the room is in fact available. And if we need to make a shift, but unless we hear otherwise, we would have it on January 8th from 12:30 to 2:30 here in the French conference.
'cause I look at the
room. Invite-
TV out in the front window and it said we were supposed to meet at noon today.
Yeah,
Oh, well, I
I
thought
said,
it
well, I'll
was
show
12
up
to
at
2,
noon in
and
case.
then she told me it was 12:30 to
Yeah, I thought
2:30,
it
so
said
I,
12:30 on their website.
so anywho.
I put 12:30 in my calendar, but
Whatever.
So there's that. And then, as I had stated a couple months ago, that my intent is that this is my last meeting as chair. So I haven't had anyone jump in and say, I'm dying to be the chair, unless that was Sam right
I was like,
now
oh my,
popping
oh
the
wow.
I think they just
Oh, yeah, no, sorry, I'm not, I'm not there.
So they've just been waiting for this moment and just.
There she is.
Sorry,
But,
battling. Go ahead.
I just feel my attention is, there's gonna be days I'm not gonna be able to come. And, I've got, my work is shifting a little bit and I just don't feel like I've given the best attention to the role in the last year as I have in previous years with all the moving parts.
Thank
I'd
you
like to
for-
stay
thank you
engaged,
for
like to
doing
stay
it.
engaged, but I think I need to sort of step outside and not be the one responsible for the 2 hours before the meeting agenda. That would be my,
Would
Not that
Sam
it's
be
the only
interested in
thing.
the job?
but I know Samantha is not interested.
Okay.
She's got, this is not, I'm not speaking for Sam, but Samantha is got a bunch of things going on and she feels like if she's, only attending by Zoom 90% of the time or 100% of the time, that's probably not the best role for her to play. So she did actually acknowledge that.
This Sam
No,
or the,
Samantha.
oh,
yes,
the Samantha.
Samantha, not Sam.
Mortlock?
So Mortlock, yeah. So she did say that wasn't something she was ready to or willing and able to step
Well, I
into.
very much value this, but I've got too many irons in the fire
Yep.
too. I'm involved with Camden, this middle school and with Louisa and with Knox Lincoln, blah, blah, blah. So I couldn't commit to do it and do a good job.
It's
Well,
not my
I'll
type
have
of
you
job
know-
and I'm not qualified anyway.
Well,
I'll have you know that Barb thought you would be great.
me?
Yeah,
Well,
if that changes your mind. She also
Well-
suggested maybe a rotating, is Barb here? I'll just speak for her.
I mean, I'm okay with
she lost
the
connection.
organizational part of it. It's just the extracurricular activities, going out and going to the harbor resiliency meeting and this meeting and that meeting. I just can't do that. I got too many other irons in the fire.
I think if you could.
Maybe if you
Run
and
the
Barb could
meeting.
share it, because she said that she would maybe consider it for a year
Yeah.
if somebody else was.
I mean, I'm okay organizing it, putting an agenda together, calling the meeting to order, kind of herding the troops, but I just can't commit to do all these other things that I think are a big part of the job, right? Like what you've done.
Some months I'm attending, some months I'm looking at
She
stuff.
couldn't
some
make it
months
to
I'm
the
not.
harbor resiliency thing.
I could
and-
not make it to the harbor resiliency because I actually have a job that I need to pay my bills with. And so, yeah, I mean, you do the best.
And it's really, I think, it's been pretty effective, so if that means anything.
Yeah.
Well, what if Barb and Brian were, yeah,
Co-chair.
because I feel like Barb actually, even though she thinks she's inundated, a lot of the time she is, I think she said the other day that she watched our meeting twice when she missed it. So that showed a lot of,
Yeah.
So
Patience.
There's commitment.
I was like, God bless you, but I can't.
I was there and I saw it and I.
Oh, that
was-
sounds
that was
painful. Let's see, since.
Why don't we do this? I'm not sure, by the way, the other thing is, I should be back on the 8th. I'm not 100% sure either.
Yep. Yeah.
Because, and I know you can do these by Zoom, but I find them hard, it's hard for me to do the Zoom, only because I like to be,
Mhm.
Why don't we do this? Why don't I email Barb, communicate with her about a proposal in that I can be responsible for putting an agenda together on the 8th. And, or if I can't do the 8th, I'm going to have to come back with another time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I know you guys are okay with that.
And somebody will call Steve. And, right?
Pain in the butt.
No, it's totally worth it.
I don't understand, like, how long does it take to make a phone call?
Well,
the hurdle is doing the first one. It's like,
Uh,
and then we get and then the next, it's that first hurdle
I
of
think the email
calling
thing
you.
is,
And then once you do, you're like, oh, I didn't make the call. I gotta
but
call
if
Steve.
it's information, it's just easy to email everybody in mass, right?
I understand that.
You know,
all
I
that,
mean,
but
that's what makes it easier, right?
I'm just very averse to technology. I don't like it.
That's fine. Some of it is just designating somebody that should do it. I have trouble even getting the email out.
That's why I don't. I watch my friends swear at their phones and their computers. I say, why do I want that?
Wait till you start getting text messages from us all the time. You're gonna be swearing.
I don't know. It all depends on, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
I mean,
well-
I understand. You're a real valuable asset to
I
the
don't
town.
have much
You got a
use
lot of-
for it.
Well, you know what, Steve? It's not a problem.
It's totally not a
It's not
problem.
a problem.
I think it's.
I can-
Well, that's a different problem. We're gonna talk about Dave after we. So how about that? I'm gonna email Barb
Perfect.
and then propose co-chair
Mhm.
to be determined what exactly that means, because I really don't, I kind of think I know. And then I'll put the meeting together for for January, right? I'll put the agenda together. I'll run the meeting, right?
Oh, she says, I think I could do that, by the way.
Oh, you're already on it, huh?
I'd let her know that it was being talked about and that you were gonna email her. And-
Okay,
But she says, I think I could do that.
okay. So it sounds like a done deal to me.
She's not so active.
Thank you
With
for
the
doing
what?
that. I can help out with notes and stuff.
Oh,
I'm sorry, guys, I gotta go. This is like an insane day. I'm sick. It's not, I would love to chair, but I'm just not the time, the energy. I don't have it right now. I'm really sorry I can't step in and step up in that way. I appreciate you, Brian.
Thanks for all you do.
Yes, well, you're welcome.
Hope you feel better.
Thank you. I will see you guys
See you at the
in a month. Happy holidays.
Okay. So it sounds like I own the next meeting, right?
I think we'll officially
Thank
call the
you
meeting
so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
adjourned.
This,
Thank you.
are we done? We're off the record?